air that we breathe. As an organizer, I often hear stories from those living in or near a frac pad or an injection well. Today, I would like to share some of these stories about pipelines and carry their words forward to stop the abuse of our basic human rights. We had one in Ohio, they did a wetlands public comment session. Rover came to one town in Wayne County in Worcester, and there was one hearing for the entire state of Ohio. One of the people that spoke at this hearing was a Reverend Dr. Sharon Giesel, and she suffers from something called multiple chemical sensitivity, which is something that people are starting to see, and they don't know what it is, but they're starting to see that there's a relationship between the two. And she goes on to talk about some of the things that she has experienced, and in my journey to understand my chronic illness, I learned from a whole world of people victimized by the uncontrolled and untested release of chemicals into our environment. According to disability rights activist Daryl Lynn Jones, 16% of the U.S. population, which is 51 million, are unusually sensitive to chemicals. 6% of the population, 19 million, are chronically ill and have disabled by exposures. What is important to note is that the chemical sensitive people can be harmed by exposures to minute amounts, even levels to be considered safe for the general public. A full range of toxicity of most chemicals is not known, nor are the accumulating effects of chemical exposures, nor the effects of being exposed to more than one chemical at a time. The fracking industry adds to those uncertainties. For example, a study of materials known to be used in natural gas extraction resulted in a list of 353 chemicals. Colborne in 2011 was the report, which are capable of causing multi-systematic symptoms. Despite the lack of research, workers and the public are often falsely reassured about the safety of their chemical exposures. Research shows that the unborn and the very young are especially susceptible to chemicals used in the fracking industry. Many researchers believe that they are related to environmental causes for the epidemic of asthma, allergies, autism, ADHD, diabetes, Parkinson, Alzheimer's, and other chronic diseases. So now let's talk about Rover. The Rover pipeline is owned by Energy Transfer Partners. It is a new interstate fracked gas pipeline system that will transport 3.25 billion cubic feet per day of natural gas through approximately 713 miles of 24-inch, 30-inch, 36-inch, and 42-inch diameter underground pipelines running through Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Ohio, and Michigan. To allow these pipelines to flow just outside a bedroom window is a crime against humanity. To knowingly poison the water of our future is a crime against the environment. We all deserve clean water and the right to protect the water at any cost. In the United States, we have been put in a place to protect these rights. Unfortunately, big business has taken over the voice of the people in the people's house, and our system has failed. We reach out to the United Nations for help to address these wrongs and insist upon international human rights laws to apply. My statements will address Rover and those in the path of one of the largest pipelines under construction in the United States. Rover is, when it comes into Ohio and comes under the Ohio River from West Virginia, it comes across as a 24-inch pipeline. When it reaches the hub in Monroe County and starts being shipped across Ohio, it becomes two 42-inch pipelines, and this is carrying fracked gas. These two 42-inch look at 6.5 feet under pressure of gas coming at you. That's what these people deal with when the Rover is in their face. Land agents started knocking on doors 3 years ago, demanding that property owners sign leases or eminent domain would apply, and they would take control of their land, or they would take control of their land, lay the pipe, and there would be nothing they could do about it. Often property owners resist. Many gave up the fight and signed these unfair and one-sided leases without representation. I have a statement, and as an activist, people contact me when there's a problem, and as a friend for environmental justice, then I look to see what can I do. Can I point them in a direction, and maybe they can find some help or something. And one of the things that one of our people, and she couldn't be here today, so I'm going to read a statement. They have a property which is 19 acres. They are surrounded on 3 sides by rover. 80 foot of rover goes across one side of their property. These people raise goats. 3 of their goats have died. One of their goats was sent to Columbus to be analyzed, and it was found to have a lung disease. And rover is like 50 feet. I mean, this is in their face. This isn't like, you could see it over the hill or something. These people, and because they resisted, we feel that maybe they are getting an extra special treatment from rover. There was at one point, they had no leases. When FERC had decided that they were going to the person who was in charge had resigned, and they were going to be down to 2 people. They could make no decisions. So this was railroaded through. Anybody that had even been talking to a pipeline company, they were put in a position to where they could come in and cut those trees. If you're just in negotiation, you didn't have to have anything signed. Well, these people felt helpless. This is eminent domain. This is what it does. So what they ended up doing was they said, what are we going to do? Attorneys advised them. They didn't sign anything, and they cut their trees. And then a few days later, this person decides that you're not coming on my property. She had everything she had, she put into this property. They had intended, and we have never timbered our trees. They had planted in 1989, they planted over 1,000 trees. And it took them 3 years to plant that. They were beautiful. They made my property look beautiful. We had never timbered our trees because eagles need a certain height tree to nest. My neighbors have timbered 2 to 4 times since I moved here. My kids had planned on building there when they retired, which have helped me and my husband in our old age. Now that cannot happen because you cannot build next to a pipeline. But they put the pipeline next to our homes. That is how they're feeling. It's not too much to ask this for future gas pipeline constructions across Ohio be stopped as supported by other states in the path of rover. In early April of this year, 2 million gallons of drilling mud was dumped into our wetlands as Energy Transfer partners failed to respond to a malfunction of equipment. I learned yesterday that this slurry went on for 3 weeks. They had all opportunities to stop that. And they also are the industry is telling the state of Ohio that they use 10,000 plus gallons. How did we get 2 millions on our wetlands, the size of 8.5 football fields? For 3 weeks, this drilling, this land has suffered 100% loss, and no one has attempted to stop the flow. And they were drilling under the Tuscarawas River at the time when this happened. The heavy drilling mud is a bentonite slurry with other slickening chemicals. Wetlands the size of the football fields. The only way to remove the slurry is to suck it up and take the loss. It will take decades, if ever, for Ohio's most diverse wetlands to ever recover. To allow these pipelines to continue without further investigation on the drilling methods and failure of Energy Transfer partners to respond to Ohio EPA is wrong against the basic rights that have been violated here. We all have the right to safe and abundant supply of clean water. The Ohio River is known as one of the dirtiest rivers in the country. To allow the installation of these pipelines that clearly have been allowed to run out of control could potentially destroy our drinking water for millions of people downstream. This is a clear case of poor planning, neglect, and disregard for communities and the environment along the pipeline route. This incident went on, and it is called an inadvertent return. As this is just the largest slurry return that they've ever had. There were 16 spills in Ohio since the construction began back in February. And I have more in my testimony that I will be turning in.
Great, thank you. Nancy?
So, yeah, so the goat that was taken to OSU or wherever to be analyzed after it died, and it was lung.
It was respiratory.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so this pipeline just going through the property was leaking? Or
No.
How did that,
No.
what would it have been?
The
Was it
dust.
air pollution?
It would have been air pollution, and we talked about
From the
from the
gas in
construction.
pipeline? From the construction.
From the construction of the pipeline. And so you have to realize you're talking 100-foot path for these pipelines. And so if you're, like 50 feet from your house, and these people couldn't sit on their porch, they can't enjoy their land anymore. And when the animals started dying, they were stressed out because of the noise, and some of these people live with this noise 24 hours a day. This is not just a simple 9 to 5 construction job or 8 to 4. Or, these people are living with this 24 hours a day.
And how long of a period of time then, while the pipeline is being constructed right close to them?
They started tearing trees out in February, and construction started immediately, and I can't say whether they're done or half done. I don't know. I know that they are there every day, and they have people on site with cars there all the time.
Tell us more about the mud.
The mud is bentonite, which is natural. It's aluminum. It occurs in soil, and they mix this with slickening agents, and so it's a slurry. It is, and I have some pictures, so whenever you see my information, you will see exactly what happened. We also have a Facebook page, the Ohio River Citizens Alliance. So there's a lot of information there that will tell you more as in detail of what we're dealing with these pipelines.
What's the slickening agent?
Well, that's the trade secret. we don't know. We identified 353 chemicals in one, but there can be a number of up to 1,000 different combinations depending on the soil that they're dealing with.
In the bentonite, it's called bentonite.
Bentonite is just
contaminated
that's the main chemical that's in it. But you also got to realize as these chemicals are being, and this is a drilling process, so they're drilling deep and underneath, they're also picking up other chemicals that are naturally occurring in the soil, which are okay naturally, but when you put them in these concentrated levels, they're not.
So I have a question. What you're saying is, here in the US, that workers can enter land that does not belong to them, private land, owned by someone else. They can cut down the trees or clear the land, however, whatever that might look like, and begin their process for putting a pipeline in, even though there is no agreement, contract, or compensation exchanged?
That's exactly what happened. And in this particular family situation, she threw him off her property. She had a gun and she was saying, you're not coming on my property. So they took her into federal court in Columbus, and they were going to try to get a restraining order against her on her own property. And there was a fair judge, and the judge says, you go back to Rover, you go back and you put your ducks in a row, or you stay off of this woman's property. Eminent domain, and I'm a realtor by trade. We're losing 50% of our property values whenever we have these pipelines go near or by, or and I wouldn't list a property that had a pipeline this close to as this family, because I couldn't put those kids or those families in harm's way. We just can't do that.
So my other question is, how close to actual physical property, meaning a home or a barn, can this pipeline go, either using eminent domain or permission of a landowner?
There's no real rules on how close you can go, and I've dealt with this company before. Sonoco Logistics is the one that installs the pipelines and does the land agent. In an old wartime line that I have in my county, that was my first line I started looking into, they are underneath people's porches, because you had an existing line from the 40s, and then they wanted to lay another 8-inch line beside it. So there's it's game, whatever they want to do with it.
So I heard, and I don't know if this is true, so I want to see if you heard this as well, that if there is a leak or an explosion of a pipeline, both the 32, 26, or 40, now I got those numbers, 42, 30,
And 24 and 42.
yeah, that the buffer zone for the explosion on either side is 1,400 feet. Meaning everything in 1,400 feet to the right of it and 1,400 feet to the left of it would be gone. It's just gone.
It's a blast zone, is what
It's a
you're
blast
referring to.
zone.
And I have some posters from a pipeline that I'm working on, another one in my county. And so I have Utopia, east I have Rover, and I also have the Sunoco line, and Nexus is trying to be pushed out of the next county coming our way. So it varies. Like if you're dealing with a frac gas, which is a wet gas, then it's going to lay low into the valleys and streams. So that's going to slowly creep up the hills, and it's a walk, don't run, don't start your car. You know. So these are the actual blast zones. But the evacuation zones, and I think it varies with the size of the pipe. In our county, the commissioners have leased to Rover across our county lands, across our Byers Woods, which was a protected woods, right by a landfill that has been mitigated. And it's 80 feet from the emergency manager director's window. And the problem that I see, and I found out with Rover, there are no evacuation plans until there's something flowing in that pipeline. And to detect a problem, we don't even know until 5% loss is shown on the records. And you're also dealing with compressor stations, and you know, this is just a little piece of the pie, but it is the elephant in the room.
Yeah, I mean, it is, and I just wanted a little clarification on that. So, you said that there is a blast zone of different levels based on the type of gas and the width of the pipe. And at the same time, you said that these pipes are underneath people's porches.
This is a previously constructed pipeline.
So they
so
won't
Rover,
go under their porches
right,
in the
no.
future.
Well, there was a historical building that was removed because it was in the path of Rover in Harrison County. Just, that was another one. And the blast zone that I'm familiar with the two 42-inch pipelines running side by side, I believe, was 2,000 feet. And, and we've got a school 2,000 feet, just right there on the edge that, they're not taking into consideration.
And is the emergency response people along the pipeline, the various towns, villages, county, are they trained for what to do when the pipeline explodes? If in fact it does, which we all hope never happens, but nonetheless, we need to prepare.
I've been asking that question for 1.5 years now, and as recent as 2 weeks ago, and still have not gotten a response. And so my research in calling Washington or working with whoever might listen to what I'm trying to find out, that's when I found out that that until that product flows, we don't know. And so they're really not addressing it, not in my county, not in Ashland County. The county commissioner, the county engineer made a statement when I called to find out about these plans, and his only concern was the roads. That's all they cared about. It was the money that they were going to get coming in. And our county commissioners made a deal where if they let Rover come through by our school, then they would be getting commercial gas to their industrial park. So it was a trade. And our community last year voted to allow our commissioners to make those decisions for us. Unwillingly. I don't think they were paying attention, obviously.
So these pipes, are they a certain length and then they bolt them together? You have any idea how this works?
They're welded together, and I have a lot of pictures posted, so you're welcome to look at those. But you look at a 42-inch pipe, and it's the length of a semi-truck. And you will see them traveling the roads every day now. And the first one I saw was an elbow, and I was coming down here actually to the Wayne, and I looked, and I had to take a picture. I couldn't figure out what it was, and that was the first time it sunk in how big Rover was and what we were actually dealing with.
So in the size of football?